Welcome, everyone. In a world that's dangerous and frightening, we offer up a peaceful solution.
We
Take
do.
5 with Groz with gas. Gas.
Yes,
Did you
yes.
know that China and Hong Kong have a tricky relationship these days, don't they?
They do. Yeah, a lot of
One,
relationships out there.
well, one thing they could agree on, though, is Groz with gas. We have listeners joining us from both China and Hong Kong on the show, so we're really out there to bring you all together.
And concerned listener Renee Gastineau said, "Well, isn't that the same thing?" And so I looked it up, and it's technically not. I mean, Hong Kong still has autonomy. Some people might laugh at that and say, China's got the thumb on them, but so we have 11 countries. Greece was added to the roll call too, so we're in 11 countries for the Puckett Worldwide Entertainment Company. That was
All I'll say is we're doing what we can. We're doing what we can to foster world goodness.
That's us. That's us.
Hey, it was quite a wild weekend, but a little tinge of sadness for me, and I think some others in town. Lost a great one in Johnny O'Brien. I can make the argument that he was the greatest professional athlete or the greatest athlete that this area has ever produced.
Let me ask about that. 94 years old, played basketball and baseball at Seattle U. Could have, they say, played in the NBA or Major League Baseball with his twin brother Eddie, and they chose baseball. So
Yep.
how do we get to the conclusion that he'd be the greatest athlete ever from here?
Well, technically he's not from here. They're from New Jersey. It's actually kind of a funny story how they wound up here because, they wanted to go as twins to the same school, and we're looking around the New Jersey area and no one would take them. So they, through a matter of happenstance, they managed to get a call from Seattle U and got sent over to Seattle U, and the Seattle U guys flew him out here. This is like 1951 or something like that. Flew him out here and, saw him and immediately was crestfallen. Because the O'Brien brothers are 5'7".
Yeah, thought they were bigger, huh?
You're the great basketball players from back east, and he said, "Look, we're going to have to." I'm paraphrasing the story because no one could tell it like Johnny O'Brien was another great thing about him. But what happened ultimately was they were taken to the gym, and they had to kind of show what they could do. And Johnny went over. I think it was Johnny or Eddie. One of the two of them went over, stood under the basket, looked up a little bit, rubbed his hands together, jumped up and grabbed the basket. I'm pretty sure it was Johnny. It was standing position at 5'7".
Yeah.
Like, okay, I think you'll be all right. I think you guys will be all right.
Yeah, we're different.
Johnny, by his third year, averaged 30 points a game. I don't think there's ever been a Seattle college player that's averaged that much in one season. Seattle U, almost. That was the first team to make it to the NCAA tournament, I do believe, in '52. Lost in the first round to Washington. Then, they had this game against the Harlem Globetrotters, Gas, and this was. This is when the Globetrotters were a serious matter. They actually were touring, and they had just beaten, I want to say, 3 weeks earlier, they'd beaten the Minneapolis Lakers, who were a multi-time champion, with George Mikan and the whole crew.
Right.
He came in to play a game against Seattle U, and one of the guys, the Globetrotters, forgive me, it was Abe Saperstein, the owner, looks at him and says, "These are the guys you got for us? These little guys? They're not going to be any competition." Johnny O'Brien went out and scored 43 points.
Yeah.
And that was one of the last games the Globetrotters lost when they were playing serious basketball. They lost to Seattle U at Heckhead of all places. You're right. Then Branch Rickey, by the way, signed Johnny and Eddie to go to Major League Baseball. Johnny played for 6 years. Eddie played for, I don't think he played for that many. But, was a starter for a couple of those seasons and had a nice career in Major League Baseball. And, the best college basketball player probably ever produced by this area. You're right, could have definitely played pro basketball. But back then, if you could play baseball, you'd play baseball, not basketball.
Right.
So he comes from that. Then he comes back into Seattle. And then, from that point on, just becomes a civic giant in some ways. He goes to the city council. He ran the Kingdom basically from its opening to 1992 or 1993, right when we came up here, was right when he was winding up that run. And then just became kind of just a gadfly, a man about town, a great storyteller. Told stories about Branch Rickey that would just make you laugh, and he'd tell the same stories over and over again, and were just incredible. And like I said, maybe the best college basketball player ever here. The game against the Globetrotters was a unique sporting event. It was one thing I really was hoping to step out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I was looking at that story thinking, that's a great 30 for 30 short. Is them the Globetrotters coming to town, them selling the game out, and them losing to the Seattle U team, which couldn't have happened. So, he lived a long life, man, long life. His brother died about 10 years back, and his wife passed away a few years ago, and he was still going to Seattle U games as of last season. So he was really a giant on the local sports scene, a real giant, and sad to lose him.
And I didn't know Johnny near as well as you did. I always was charmed in his company. I dug up two things in almost a gas pump fashion that I would have used were I doing the gas pump today. First player ever to score 1,000 points in a season in the NCAA.
That's right.
And the shortest All-American until 2016 when Tyler Ulis of Kentucky, who was also 5'7", was named an All-American. Until that time, Johnny was the shortest All-American in history. Isn't that something?
It is, man. It is.
Yeah.
Told stories like no other man. I mean, stories about Billy Martin. And, Billy Martin and George Steinbrenner both love the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't tell you anything. Yeah, I mean, he was just, was ubiquitous on the sports scene here. Everyone loved him and was really just was a great towering figure. So I'm glad we could acknowledge that at the beginning. That unfortunately that's happening too often nowadays. But he was a great one, and he'll be missed.
Well, 94, and as I recall, pretty active for a while. I haven't seen him but he was active into his 90s. Doing stuff around town and helping Seattle U where he could. So good run, good for him. Hey, I know you watched a lot more than me, but this U.S. Open feels like one for the books. When the champion starts his day at 3 a.m. at a pharmacy picking up medicine for his 2-year-old who's barfing all over their hotel room,
right?
And then. Did I read this right? He bogeyed 5 of the first 6 holes in the final round.
Five of the first 6, and he was the leader, and so he's gone.
Yeah,
JJ
right.
Spahn is his name. I mean, that happens in the final round of any golf tournament, but a major, forget about it.
Yeah.
Instead, he kind of hangs around there, hits a 65-foot putt to win it. Well, he could have 2-putted to win it, but it was just poetic that he hit a 65-foot putt to win it. But I mean, Gas, going back to the start of what you're talking about, how about this for a soul-crushing moment? Second hole in the first round, hits his second in the final round, hits a shot, one bounce hits off the flagstick.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be 3 feet away, except it bounces off the flagstick so far it rolls 40 yards back onto the fairway. I mean, you see his face, like you can't help laughing. He's just looking like, what happened here? What happened here? I mean, it's not something you bounce back from, and yet he did. It was, and then it was just so incredible. There, the last hour or so, you had moments where you had 5 guys tied for the lead, 3 guys within 1 shot of it. Scotty Scheffler 2 shots back of them. It was tremendous theater, and it was a great win for a guy who you wouldn't have thought could do it. You wouldn't have thought he could have done it, and was just had the underdog feel to him, and it was remarkable. It really was.
The U.S. Open is the one tournament every year where hanging around can be enough. You don't have to be spectacular. You just got to hang around. I kind of find myself enjoying that. In other words, that they make the course crazy hard. It's nice to because these guys can go out. Next week they'll play the lower East-West Des Moines Classic, and guys will be shooting 62s, and that's fine too. It's fun to see them do stuff that I could never even dream of. But it's also kind of fun to see them arm wrestle.
You do every time you play. Like chunking a wedge shot 15 yards.
Yeah. What about was it Sam Burns is the name of the guy who they say might have won it, but he got kind of. I didn't see this. Did he get screwed by that ruling?
Well, he's hitting out of a puddle, Gas. Is you supposed to get a free drop from that?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if it's the U.S. Open or it's a weekend tournament. If you're hitting in standing water, you get a free drop.
Yeah.
And he asked 2 guys about it, and, I don't know how they could have come to the conclusion that, no, you don't. He was doing practice swings. He was seeing the water spray up. I mean, he's in a puddle. So he hits it. He hits a bad shot, of course, which you're going to do in that circumstance. And, Sam Burns was 2 or 3 under. He was on pace to win this thing. It looked like it was going to be fairly comfortable for him. The wheels came off at that point, which, again, is giving JJ Spahn some credit for going through a couple of things like that and the wheels not coming off.
Right.
But it was not fair. It was not fair. And Burns, to his credit, handled it like a pro. I mean, didn't blame it on that. Didn't claim anything that there was gods were conspiring against him or it was unfair or anything like that. But it was a little unfair, I thought. And that doesn't mean he would have won, but he certainly would have bogeyed that hole and he would have had the momentum change that he had. So it was too bad. But that was, and taken in context, it just added to the layers of the tournament. Added to the drama that was there. So it was really a great weekend for that.
That the weather was crap all weekend. There's times when it's better when it's 78 and sunny, but there's times when the elements. Keith Richards has a great line when the Stones play outside, and he goes, once in a while it rains. God decides to join the band. And God joined the Open yesterday and all weekend, and it rained. It was and then you're right. Spawn's shot off the flagstick. I mean, everybody's got a story like that. I remember hitting a ball once. I was probably about 165 out on a hole, and it was one of those courses that has the 150-yard marker in the middle of the fairway. Mm-hmm. I hit a beautiful shot, Groz. This thing is headed for the green, except 15 yards into its journey, it hits the post. I mean, I couldn't hit this thing if you asked me to. I could hit 100 golf balls and not do it.
Right.
It hits the post. It bangs off of it. I remember distinctly seeing it flying over my head the other direction. So, like, my third shot on the hole was from 160. My fourth shot was from 185.
Yeah, right.
Oops. And
well, we can laugh at stuff like that, and in the tournament, man, I don't know how you come back from it. I don't. And then so he goes bogey after that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really come back from it. He kind of crumples a little bit, but manages to just hang in there. And like you said, it's definitely a place like Oakmont too, which is a real classic open course. To hang in there and still come back. And I believe it's one of the only times that a person's entered the U.S. Open with birdie. I don't think that's happened more than once, possibly twice in the past. So it was really a remarkable thing.
Yeah, I saw something, too, that Spahn becomes the fourth consecutive guy to win his first major at the U.S. Open at this course.
Wow.
Going back like Ernie Els, I think. I forget whether four guy. He's the fourth consecutive guy to win his first major at Oakmont.
Might have been Nicklaus.
I'm not
62,
sure.
yeah. Probably Nicklaus was one of those guys, but Ben Hogan, probably one of those guys, too. Yeah, it was a classic course, and it was a classic tournament, and a lot of fun to watch. Now, speaking of classic tournaments,
yes,
you were at the start of one, which is I don't know, is the club championship? Is that a classic one yet?
No, that's all part of it. It's really kind of become a little bit of a mess. I'll start out by saying the Botofogo, which Botofogo is a fun word to say. Say it, Groz. Say Botofogo.
Botofogo. Hey, Botofogo. I like that. Botofogo.
Botofogo.
Hey,
Sounders.
Botofogo.
Botofogo, you.
What?
The soccer was excellent last night. That's the best place to start. I think people would say, yeah, and the Sounders had a shot, and they with a little luck they could have gotten a draw or maybe even a win. They were certainly not favored. But it was the event itself felt so, and this is a FIFA event. People are hacking on the Sounders a little bit. They don't have much control over this.
And this is a club champions from all over the world.
Right.
Some of the greatest teams in the world are involved in this.
They've done it before, but they tried to really juice it up this year, and they're making it as a precursor to the World Cup. They just wildly overestimated what people were ready to spend on tickets.
I saw
Not
that.
just in Seattle, around the country. They've had horrible problems. So people are like, no, this is, it'd be like if you start the Super Bowl and say, okay, and it's $1,000 a ticket. It took the Super Bowl 50 years to get to that.
Then they also charge people like $160 at first, and then they have you can buy them for $60.
Yeah, well, yeah,
so they kind of screwed everyone who paid too much.
Yeah, FIFA kept lowering the price, and finally the Sounders went to bat for their fans and said, you got to do something for us. And what they ended up doing, and again, this doesn't feel like some big event, the Sounders told them, we want to give everybody who bought tickets through our website. If you bought somewhere else, they're not going to help you. But if you went to the Sounders website as a season ticket holder and bought, like our friend Don Borst, who I went to the game with last night, Don spent $300 to buy 2 tickets in the 300 level. Thursday, he gets an email, hey, because you're such a great fan, we're giving you 2 seats in the club level. And they did that to everybody.
Well, that's nice.
Nice move by the Sounders. But then again, so you get there, and we're in the club level, but the club's not open. There's not enough people to justify opening the club. It was about 30,000 in the building. It didn't look great. They're on a TV network I've never heard of that I hear is a free streaming network, but I get to the conclusion that there's times when FIFA just doesn't give a shit about the U.S. and doesn't care.
They definitely don't.
Because you'd think, and they do have some of the matches on bigger networks, but Groz, was the U.S. Open on a network you've heard of yesterday?
Yeah, several of them.
The NBA and NHL finals, are they on networks we've heard of?
Yes.
And this thing, I've seen some people complain that the stream wasn't good, and I'm like, I can't imagine you wouldn't have wanted the first Sounders game on TV, considering there are 6 games in Seattle. You'd think you'd want it to where people can get a hold of it. It's always easy to backseat drive, and again, this is not the Sounders. It's FIFA, and I interacted with them enough during that Copa Americano tournament where I did some
Yeah,
work. It
they're a
is their way or the highway
corrupt
on
bunch
stuff.
of clowns.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
too bad
So
because what was it? Argentina's playing River Plate, and
yeah, they're playing a Japanese side, and
yeah. I
the
mean, how's that
Sounders
going to
playing
go?
what at noon tomorrow.
Uh,
I tell you, call up FIFA and see if they'll just give you tickets. You and Bonnie can wander down and watch some football. It's
Probably.
I hope some interest builds in it. It's easy to slag on something, but in this case, again, we keep wondering when will sports push the envelope too far, and
It's
this
happening,
isn't
man.
it, but this may be an example of like you can't just say to people, we're not even putting the lower bowl tickets on sale back in December. No, we're only selling the upper bowl, and they're $300 or $150 a ticket, and they just overestimated what people, and then
Right.
no one could have necessarily foreseen how people would become fearful of traveling to the United States of America, which is a true thing right now that people are dealing with.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's funny. I read a long op-ed piece in the New York Times today about what you just talked about, basically in general, how the American sports fan is getting slowly ruined by the way they're doing stuff. But it's been so hard to root for your team because everything is sold in slices, and you got to buy this for this series and dynamic pricing. Another one of those bullshit names that makes you think it's something good is actually something that's screwing you. Is going on all over the place. It's harder and harder to root for your home team without paying through the nose, and people are getting tired of doing it. And they're really attacking. It's attacking one of the underpinnings of America. Sports has always been a hugely important thing, especially in community sense of bringing communities together when teams come out of the blue and play well. And now you're making that even tougher to have happen because you're limiting access to it.
I saw somebody, just a fan. Just a fan. I saw a fan quoted in the paper said something kind of interesting, and it'll be interesting to watch this unfold. Said, well, yeah, I'm really fired up about the World Cup coming here, but I'll tell you what, I'm not buying tickets in advance. I'm going to see how it plays out. I'll wait till, now I think the World Cup will be a hotter ticket because it has been around forever and people are going to,
Right.
this is something they're trying to manufacture enthusiasm in. But you're right. That's how they did it. They did, we're going to do dynamic pricing, and it was just a big old dynamic turd.
Hey, by the way, would the U.S., if they weren't the host team, make the World Cup?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not following that as close as I used to.
Okay.
But I'm not. I would.
The national team's not going well.
No, and hasn't for it. It's funny. I just when my Sounders book's 12 years old now. It's hard to believe, and I just remember when it came out. I remember thinking, this is going to happen in my lifetime. We're going to see whether or not the U.S. is going to compete on the international stage, the growth and all that. And MLS certainly has grown, but they've done. Soccer does weird things to itself, and putting all the games on Apple was a weird decision in my mind. I know it's a lot of money for them, but it's taken them out of the mainstream. Having FIFA come in and run this tournament and not having it on ABC or NBC, those things, they still mean something to be on a big network. Maybe they went to him and they said, no, we're not, because they probably went to him. If you'll give us $10 billion a game, you can televise. Like, all right, well, how about no? But anyway, I do hope that they get things going. And the crowd last night was great. The people that were there had fun, and the soccer was good. And that really is a good place to end it because that's the most important thing. All this other stuff is extra stuff. The Sounders played well. Botafogo played better and got the win.
So your Pacers still in this thing or what?
They are, but I think they're going to regret the end of that game the other night and having a big lead.
How can they
Everybody's
not?
bitching about the officials. And, hey, you know what? You can't have a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter on your floor to go up 3-1 in a series where you're not the favorite. You can't let that lead get away. And then I let it get away. They lost, by 7. So get outscored 31-17 in the fourth quarter.
Jeez.
Now that said, sure, you know why? That's the beauty of the 7-game series. You gotta win tonight, and suddenly you can win the whole thing on Thursday. But I think they're gonna feel. I don't know. God, I feel so weird. I've doubted them the whole way. I thought
Right.
Milwaukee was gonna get them. They're not gonna beat Milwaukee. Who they got?
Right.
They had
The first round.
And then Cleveland won 905 games this year. They're really good. And then the Knicks are the Knicks. So I've been a doubting Thomas along the way. Interestingly enough, until they got to this series, now I'm like, nope, they're going to win it. So I'm probably putting the screws to them. But I don't know. What do you think? They obviously can win it, but feels like a big task now to have to win one in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I'm not watching that much of it. I'm living and dying with the Edmonton Oilers, who really came up flat in their game. they played last year, so I got some confidence that they can win this one in Florida. But the Panthers are really a good team.
Yeah,
they're really a good team, and it's going to be tough on them. It's going to be tough on them, but they'll try and force a Game 7, which they had last year, and that's I'll root for those in both series. Give me a Game 7, I'm happy.
Sure, that's good. And you look again, the 7-game series. It's such an interesting thing. How can Edmonton, who could still win, how can they come out so flat in their own building? How do they get run out of their? I mean, it's one thing to the Pacers. They lost, okay, but they didn't come out and roll over. I mean, Edmonton was just done.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny because they're not flat. They're excited to play.
Right.
No one's flat in that circumstance. Yet they look like it. Bonnie was kind of saying, why are they playing so poorly? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, they don't know.
Right.
I mean, if they knew that, they wouldn't. But it was anticlimactic. We'll see because again, these two teams played last year, played such a great series. I think there's a chance for a Game 7. If it gets to Game 7 in the NBA Finals, that'll be fine too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll take it. I'll sign up for that right now.
Yeah.
If that's the case, keep them alive. I thought of you the other day. I heard somebody say, I remember one of your big things you used to go off on, you're 100% right, was when I would say, this is going to come down to who wants it more. Like, what, you don't think the other guys at the U.S. Open wanted it yesterday? They wanted it. They wanted it just as bad as JJ.
Oh, I know, man.
Come on.
That's crazy.
It's such a dumb thing to say.
It is. Mariners had a good weekend. I did a tweet last week, where I said the Mariners are going to, I guarantee, a softy S one.
Yeah.
The Mariners are going to win the West.
Yeah.
And apparently it electrified the boys.
It did. I love the roller coaster baseball does all the time. And the swings are more pronounced with M's fans for all the reasons we've discussed over the years. But, again, this is a little bit like what we're talking about with the U.S. Open. Baseball, you can just if you just hang around for a while, you can be a factor in September. And maybe they're in a hang around stage right now. But you're right. They needed a weekend like that, a sweep, and the games were dramatic. Saturday night, was fantastic. Just good for the. Look, I think they're a good team. I think you get into June, it's like this isn't a mirage. That doesn't mean they're going to win the West. That doesn't mean they might not have some things go wrong and could still fall apart. But I don't think you're being honest with yourself if you look at this team and say, no, they're not any good. They're good. They're having some guys have career years. God, is Polanco coming back? How about if Polanco is able to do some stuff for him? Last week we're burying the poor guy. Now we're like, hey, get him back on the All-Star ballot.
J.J. Crawford was big for him last week, and he's having a big year. And that's one of the things I like about how it's going for them. They got, I don't want to say the right guys. It sounds crazy, but Crawford and Cal Riley are team leaders, clubhouse leaders. They are the right guys to be carrying this team. I think the pitching is going to be fine. Logan Gilbert's comeback is really going to be big, obviously. But, Hancock has pitched really well in the modes that they needed him in. I think their pitching is going to really, really take them there. August is the dog days when it's really tough, and that's where you got pitchers that can go in the 6th and 7th inning consistently and really make a difference for you. They actually, guys, if anything, they need bullpen help. And I know they need hitting help, but Munoz can't carry that bullpen by himself, and that's kind of what he's been doing up until this point. So I want to see him get active there, and hopefully we will. Big Devers trade for Boston and San Francisco, which is one that I think it's good move for San Francisco. They're competing with the Dodgers, and they actually are competing with them. It might have fit with the Mariners, of course. A bat like that would, but what is that 9 years left on his $250 million contract? Is that right?
Yeah.
It's just I don't blame the Mariners for not picking up that contract. How about that?
Yeah, and he can play more than third base, but you've got a third baseman now who looks like a keeper. He reminds me so much in a lot of ways when they brought Kyle Seager up. It's like, hey, this guy's okay. He's going to be good. He was good for a decade. This guy feels the same way. That's not. The other side of the infield is where you got to look. You got to find him. And Devers could have played first base, I guess, so you could argue that. But
he's not. He actually wouldn't do that in Boston. So he's really bitching about it. I know what he'll do in San Francisco. We'll see. But we'll see if they can get something done or not. But I feel pretty good about him. I really do. I think the way they're made up, the way guys are playing for them, they don't have to win. I don't think it's going to take 100 games to win the West. So I think they're going to be fine in the West. I got a good feeling about Wilson there, not losing his cool. As a guy who's been in that situation as a player before, we'll see. I'm probably setting him off for a 10-game losing streak now, but which always seems to be the case with them. But I kind of like the way they look going into this part of the season. And you know what? They had this bump in the road gas. And they didn't fall 10 games back.
Right.
You know, I mean, they stayed right in there. So, I mean, every team has a few hiccups along the way. The Dodgers just got swept. Excuse me, the Yankees just got swept by the Red Sox this weekend. The Dodgers haven't been playing well either. So everyone hiccups along the way. I think they're going to be fine.
And one last note, Ohtani starting pitching tonight for the Dodgers, the unicorn, the once-in-a-lifetime guy, and he's going to probably pitch an inning, just to start working.
Yeah. After they pull the ball out of his hand in the fifth inning, they'll be, you know,
Right.
I bet he's stuck to the side, and they go, hey, he's got all 3 outs. He's got a no-hitter going. We can't pull him now.
Yeah, right.
No, but it's a huge thing to have him back pitching because, you know, last year was just so amazing. You know, a 50-50 guy, you know, that if he can go back and now become an ace pitcher again and still hit 40 home runs, 50 home runs, I mean, unicorn barely begins to describe him. I mean, you're talking about something you've never seen the likes of.
Well, as we used to say, tick-tock, look at the clock. It's time for In the News. Groz, would you like to go to the Bluegrass State and hear what's going on down in Kentucky these days?
Is this from the follow-up file, by the way?
It is not, I don't think. I don't think we've had this, but what you see, you tell me if I'm wrong. Jonathan Mason, known locally as Commander Cody, is facing a slew of charges after he was bounced from a bar and then came back and released a raccoon in the same bar. Mary Hafner is a bartender there at the Big Apple Grill and Bar and says, I'm a bartender, so I've seen crazy stuff in my time, but nothing like this. He had a raccoon that he had trapped earlier in the day on his farm, and he brought the raccoon to the bar with him, left him in his truck. He went in. They know him well there, and they've had to 86 him before, and this time he decided to do something about it. The bar had previously banned him over a drunken mule incident. And more on that in a moment. We got to wrap this first part up. So they go to Hafner, the bartender, said she believed he'd had enough and went to him and said, you've got to leave. And she said he complied without complaint, but moments later returned armed with a raccoon. A video shows employees crawling on the floor, chasing after the raccoon as he weaves his way through tables and chairs. Now, you may remember I mentioned a drunken mule incident. Last winter, Mason was arrested on December 7th for leading cops on a wild, drunken chase through city streets on a mule, and that chase began at the Big Apple Grill and Bar. That was December 7th. He was released, and then on December 9th was arrested for leading police on a drunken chase on a mule. Guys, I don't want to judge anybody, but I think this guy may have a problem with alcohol.
That is classic, man. That is absolutely classic. The one I thought you were going to do with the follow-up file was your zebra story.
Oh, what happened? Did I miss something with the zebra?
They caught him yesterday. He was free for a week. He was running around. They couldn't catch him till I think it was Friday or Saturday. So I think he was for a week. He was running around that town, and it was in Tennessee or Kentucky. It was one of those two places.
Did he get loose again? So you told me he got loose again because they caught him the one that met.
This time he got loose, and he was running free and prancing, and sightings of him here, there, and everywhere. And they finally caught him on Friday.
It's like you on a Friday afternoon. He was running free and prancing. All right, go Mariners.